I'm going to be reading from Luke chapter 9, verse 23 through 25. This is the verse that was chosen for this conference, and I want to focus on one particular part of this section. Luke 9:23. And he said to all, "If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever would save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will save it. For what does it profit a man if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself?" Jesus had thousands of people following him. If you read chapter 9, he just finished feeding 5,000 people. They had a few pieces of bread and fish, and he fed 5,000 people. Here we have maybe 500 people, close to about. Imagine that multiplied by so much more. He had so many people following him, and he turns to them and says, "If anyone wants to follow me, you have to do the following things." And he called people to do three things. First thing, he called people to leave something behind. The second thing, he asked them to take something. And the third part, he said, "Follow me." In the beginning, he calls them to follow him, and in the end, he calls them to follow him. I want to focus on what he told us to leave behind. He said, "If anyone is to follow me, let him deny himself." If you remember in the Bible, there is one person who denied Jesus. Peter, when things got really hard and he was under pressure, he denied Jesus. And what he did is he said, "I don't even know who this person is anymore." There's three people who came up to him, asked them, "You were with him, you were with him." And he said, "I don't even know him." So he disassociated himself, or he basically said, "I have nothing to do with that person." And that is an example, not an example, but it's more of an image of what Jesus is calling us to do. He says, look to yourself and say, you have nothing to do with yourself. Deny yourself. What does that mean? Because I'm pretty sure that most of us like ourselves, right? We tend to like ourselves. As humans, we think we're pretty good, and we like ourselves. As a matter of fact, even Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. So Jesus said, not only do we like ourselves, we actually love ourselves. So how are you supposed to deny someone you love? How are you going to deny yourself if you really, really love yourself? You have such good self-esteem of yourself. You look at yourself very favorably. You take care of your body. You take care of your health. You spend so much time focused on yourself. And here Jesus says, deny yourself. That is a hard thing to do. And when I was thinking about these things, I realized that he wasn't really talking about hating yourself as a person. Jesus was referring to the things within us that are not pleasing to God. And that's what he wanted for us to deny. And he said, deny yourself. Why couldn't he just say, deny the things that are bad within you? The way I understand it is, he was referring to the sin that sometimes entangles us, or the sin that takes control of us. And he says, deny your sin. Deny your old ways. Deny your old habits. Deny those inclinations to sin. Deny anything that pleases God, not one bit. He says, look deep within yourself and deny it. Say you want nothing to do with it. And one thing that Jesus always does when he says for us to do something, he gives us an option, or he always gives a way out. And he tells us to deny ourselves, but he also tells us to come to him. I want to open with you Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. The heaviest burden that anybody can handle or carry is the burden of sin. If you guys remember, when Jesus was about to be crucified, he was in the garden and he was praying, and he was under so much pressure that his sweat turned into blood. He was taking on the burden of the world, the sin of the world upon himself. It is a heavy, heavy burden. And here's what Jesus said about burden. 11:28. Come to me, all who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. The promise here is this burden of sin, this burden of our past, of our bad habits, of anything bad within us. He says, come to me. He opens his arms. He opens it willingly. He says, come to me, and I will give you rest. Another passage that I want to read with you is in Revelations chapter 3, verse 20. Revelations 3:20. This is to one of the churches, and Jesus says, behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me. The wonderful thing about Jesus is when he invites people to him, he invites them with loving kindness. He doesn't invite with this judgment, with this ridicule. He says, I'm knocking at your door. Just imagine last time you had somebody at your house, they're knocking at your door. Hopefully they weren't frantically knocking at your door. They're just knocking at your door. They're waiting for you to answer. And that's what Jesus does. He comes and he knocks on our door. He waits and he waits for somebody to answer. And I want to share with you guys a little bit of a testimony. Like most of us, I grew up in the church. And I have wonderful parents who raised me up in the faith. They taught me all about Jesus. I started in Sunday school as well, and I mastered Sunday school. I did pretty good over there, I thought. And, you learn the things about the faith, but there's a difference between learning about them and truly accepting them. And so my life, as I was growing up, was not following Christ. I did not deny myself. I actually liked doing the things of the world, the things that are not good, the sinful things. And there was one time, there was a tragedy that occurred in our family. Two of my cousins, they died tragically in an accident, both of them at once. And it shook our church, it shook our congregation, it shook our city, and it shook me. I felt like I need to stop. I need to stop in my tracks, and I need to think things through. And I froze in my tracks. And I felt God knocking at my heart. It couldn't have been anybody else. It was God with His mercy knocking in my heart. And I remember one Sunday morning we had service, and I planned it all out. I said, when they are going to call him to the altar, I'm running up there. So I came to church with that expectation. Just waited for church to finish, and I rushed to the altar. And God filled me with His presence. Maybe it's kind of embarrassing for guys to confess that they cried, but I cried. Like a baby, I cried before God. But I want to say one thing, is those were the most wonderful tears that I ever shed. The ability to, or the chance, the mercy of God to have Him knock at your heart is the greatest thing that you can ever receive. And I felt God forgive me, cleanse me, give me a brand new life. And it is the most wonderful, I don't even know the words to put it, how wonderful of an experience it was to have Christ come into my heart. And the passage that we read with you, in the beginning, Jesus said, even if you gain the whole world, but you lost your soul, what good is there to it? And that is what I want to call you, brothers and sisters. Look deep within your heart. As we're beginning this service, look deep within your heart and consider where you are before God. Have you denied yourself? Have you found yourself rejecting the sin in your life? Have you found yourself rejecting it as though you have nothing to do with it? That is what denial is. You have absolutely nothing to do with it. You don't want any piece of it. You don't even want to see it. You don't want to smell it. You don't want anything to do with it. Deny yourself. Deny your past. Clean yourself from it. And I want to call you to that. I invite you to stand to our feet, and I invite you to come before God in prayer. If you feel that maybe here God is speaking to you, maybe you grew up in the church, maybe you know everything that you need to know about the faith, but you don't truly know Jesus. You cannot call him your Jesus. You can call him the Jesus of your parents. You can call him the Jesus of the Sunday school or of the conference or whatever. But you cannot call him your Jesus. This is the place for you. I invite you to come before him, to humbly bow your knees before him. Invite him into your heart if he's knocking in your heart. May his grace pour into you. May his forgiveness come over you. May his glory come over you.